Welcome to World Facts Channel, another day, another story. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 was a detailed and lengthy standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. This crisis escalated tensions to the brink of nuclear war, posing a serious threat and highlighting the dangerous consequences of the superpower rivalry. Let's delve into the background, development, and implications of this event in a more extensive and elaborate essay. During the Cold War era, the United States and the Soviet Union were in constant tension due to ideological differences and competition. The Western Bloc led by the United States through NATO and the Warsaw Pact led by the Soviet Union engaged in a power struggle. Both superpowers engaged in an arms race, seeking to establish deterrence against each other with nuclear weapons. The events unfolded in October 1962, starting in Cuba. Cuba, an island nation in close proximity to the United States, was seen as an ally by the Soviet Union. Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev decided to construct a series of nuclear missile sites in Cuba, aiming to gain a strategic advantage over the United States. When the United States discovered the construction of Soviet missile sites in Cuba, significant concern arose. This situation posed a grave threat to the United States, as Soviet missile sites in such close proximity could potentially target American soil. U.S. intelligence confirmed that the missiles in Cuba could be equipped with nuclear warheads, an utterly unacceptable scenario. In response, U.S. President John F. Kennedy opted for a series of measures to prevent the placement of missiles in Cuba. Kennedy initiated a naval blockade around Cuba, aiming to prevent Soviet ships from reaching the island. Additionally, he sent a letter to the Soviet leader, demanding the removal of the missiles from Cuba and warning of severe consequences if his demands were not met. During this period, the world teetered on the brink of nuclear war. As tensions escalated between the United States and the Soviet Union, the entire world anxiously watched the developments. The potential consequences of a conflict between the two superpowers were horrific, posing a grave threat to global peace. Despite the U.S. naval blockade, Cuba remained supported by the Soviets and resisted the removal of the missiles. This further heightened the tension, and the world held its breath. Both sides intensified their military preparations, becoming fully prepared for war. However, diplomacy and negotiations were crucial in averting a major crisis. World leaders realized the catastrophic consequences of nuclear war and endeavored to find a peaceful resolution. Ultimately, an agreement was reached between the US and Soviet leaders to prevent the crisis from escalating further. The Soviets agreed to remove the missiles from Cuba, and the US committed to removing certain missiles from Turkey. Thus, both sides took a step back, diffusing the risk of nuclear confrontation. The Cuban Missile Crisis served as a profound lesson for the world. This dangerously close confrontation between the two superpowers highlighted the immense peril of uncontrolled proliferation of nuclear weapons. Following the crisis, communication channels were established between the United States and the Soviet Union, and agreements were made to further control the spread of nuclear weapons. The Cuban Missile Crisis was one of the most perilous moments of the Cold War era. This event served as a stark reminder to world leaders about the devastating consequences of nuclear warfare, prompting them to take steps to prevent further conflict and arms escalation. Efforts to safeguard global peace and control nuclear weapons intensified following this crisis.